came up with this definition. Spiritual myopia is the inability to see past our present problems. And it's amazing how it can come and go. There are many days when I am just overwhelmed by that which is right here. It can just drag me down. How about you? I mean, there are times when I just can't see past my own selfishness. And I need to be reminded to put these glasses back on so that I can see past me. And I don't know if you caught it in the film clip, but the older guy, the older gentleman there, comes up with 3 specific reasons why people have this spiritual myopia, why they can't see past the fingers. They can't see the vision behind it. Is because of fear, because of conformity, and because of laziness. That guy is spot on, and he hits a lot of Bible passages, and he hits me too when he says that. That's why from time to time I get spiritual myopia, and I know that you struggle with it too. As we look at the vision of New Song, do we see past the problem? When we see we want to be a community of faith, we want to introduce people to Jesus, we want to help them to fall in love with Him, and that's when we have our glasses on and we're seeing the vision. But how does that come to pass? And we see all these problems. Well, it's going to take money. Oh, it's going to take time. It's going to take effort. And we see all the problems. We can't see the vision because we're focusing on the things that are so close to us, and those things are called problems. We do because of fear. 1 John chapter 4 and verse 27. I love the words that Jesus left His disciples as He is preparing to depart. He says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." Now I can stand up here and I can preach all about this, you know. Jesus said He's left us peace. He said, "I've given you peace." He's not saying like peace like the world gives. In other words, people are not fighting, you got peace. No, He's talking about a special peace. He's talking about His peace, the peace of His presence. And He goes on and He says that, there's going to be problems in this world. He says, don't be afraid, though. Don't be afraid. Yet we all have so many fears. And why can't we see that vision? Because we have so many fears. Why can't we see past the problem? Because we're afraid of the problem. And I'm telling you, there's a whole lesson in this alone, this struggle that you and I have with focusing on the problem and being afraid of it. Fears that we have, they're directly connected to our faith. Do you realize that there's this principle that is true, that the greater my faith, the less the fears, and the greater my fears, the less my faith. And that's not a judgment on you or me. It's a reality. And some of us, our faith will allow us to do one thing, and others not. And that's why we're told over and over again in the Scriptures that we're to grow in our faith. And so, when I'm looking at these fears, let's go back to this text that Jesus has. And so when you see the poor, what are we afraid of when we see poor people? Isn't it obvious? I mean, Jesus covered all these categories of people and their plight and their problem. And poor people are a problem. So we don't want to see them. We don't want to see it. We see it as a problem. We don't want to look at what the answer is because we're afraid if we see poor people, then they're going to want some of our money. We're afraid of change. We don't want to see past that. We got it. It's here. It's near. It's normal. It's what we're always accustomed to, and I don't want to change it. Why? Because I'm afraid of change. Because of fear. Spiritual myopia because of conformity. We oftentimes turn into a bunch of lemmings. Oh my goodness gracious. Just a bunch of lemmings following one after another. It doesn't matter if it's over a cliff. We'll do it. I have seen it time and time again, this group, peer pressure thing. It isn't just kids. They did a little experiment where they had these 3 guys in a room. And there was a guy outside the room, and he was working on a ladder, and these people came into the room. They watched the guy working on the ladder. They came and sat down in the room. And then By the way, one of the guys in the room was a plant. He was a plant. He knew what was going on. And so anyhow, if this guy sounded like he fell off the ladder, you could hear a big crash. And you know the first thing that people do in a group? They look around at each other to see what they're going to do. And if the guy who was the plant sat there, the rest of them sat there too. Okay, then they bring in 3 more guys. And they set up the same scenario. And then the plant guy, as soon as they hear it crash, they get up to go. The other 2 follow him. Conformity. You know, we don't see past the problem because so many of us are wanting to just, fit in. We don't want to be different, and so we're going to conform to whatever it is that's around us. And we're going to follow the crowd. And then laziness. Who knows, but we all struggle with that, right? Hebrews chapter 6, 11 and 12. I like the specific area which this Hebrew writer deals with this. He says, we want each of you to show the same diligence to the very end in order to make your hope sure. We do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what has been promised. We got a common struggle with laziness. And you know, what's really at the heart of laziness is our own selfishness. It really is. And just having what we want and not wanting to exert anymore. Why do we focus so much on the problem? Because of fear, because of conformity, because of laziness. We don't look past the problem. And I'm afraid that's why some people don't see Jesus and don't focus on Him. And they focus on the problem instead of the solution. And Jesus is the solution. Jesus didn't focus on the problem. When we go back to our text, I just want to overemphasize, Jesus did not focus on the problem. This world had a lot of problems, and the problems all associated with sin. He didn't focus on the fact that people were poor. He didn't focus on the fact that people were prisoners. He didn't focus on the fact that people were blind. He didn't focus on the fact that people were oppressed. We say that's what he's talking about here. No, it isn't. Jesus saw past that to the solution. Jesus is that solution. That's why he was willing to come and to die for our sins, because he wasn't looking at and focusing on the sin problem. He was focusing on the solution, and he was the solution to that problem. And he did it against any fears, against any conformity, against any self-thought. He saw past it. And I pray that you and I, that our faith grows enough that we can look past the problem, the struggle, the challenge, whatever it is, and keep our eyes right on Jesus. And He'll release us to do a miracle. He can do a miracle in your life too. Wherever you're at and you think you can't be forgiven, wherever you're at in your life and you think that, whatever it is that you've done, it's just impossible. Nothing's impossible with God. The Bible tells us that. There's nothing impossible with God. And He wants you to come and be His child. And so whatever it is you need to be released from, whatever is oppressing you, whatever's got you blinded, just hear the voice and follow it and get out of that darkness.